Fallout TV, New Vegas, Fallout 3. There's no end to the success stories of Fallout. A nuclear wasteland set in a retro, futuristic, cartoon-style world, it's obvious why people are interested. But for some reason, there is a curse on this franchise. To create one of the worst games ever at launch,
You've been out cold a couple of days now. Why don't you just relax a second?
then work so hard that it becomes good through updates, DLC, or because of another project. Bugs, glitches, launch issues, nothing can truly stop a Fallout game from eventually becoming great. Bethesda, Fallout's current owners and one of the largest game studios that I can think of, are the biggest push towards this exact curse. It seems most role-playing games, or RPGs, created by Bethesda have garbage reviews at release, but then turn into the greatest game ever a couple months after launch with some magical update. We are so brainwashed by Toddy Boy that people seem to remember Bethesda's remedies to their problems rather than the problems themselves. This happens even when another game company takes control of their IP. But through time and effort, we end up getting the greatest game ever. Far different than any other Fallout game to date. The great success of Fallout 1 shouldn't be understated. Fallout was revolutionary. It was one of the greatest RPG worlds of the time and showed gamers what a great RPG could be. Fallout 1, created by Interplay, which would later have a spiritual successor known as Obsidian, which is important later, Fallout of that time was an isometric 3D role-playing game, which basically means it looks like this. Though non-Baldur's Gate 3 players would think these are terrible graphics, and we'd never play a game with this perspective. This was 1997, a year that honestly most of the people watching this video haven't hit. Make sure to like and subscribe and follow my Twitch to not become a ghoul, by the way. This was a year where the other best RPG experience you could get was this. Fallout was in no way out of place. This game is arguably the most important game in the entire franchise's life. It created all of the lore and established the Fallout franchise as a heavy hitter in the RPG world, and really the gaming world as a whole, selling around 600,000 copies. I know you're thinking, 600K? I thought games selling in the tens of millions were successful. It was the 90s, bro. Everything was different, and PC games had not hit nearly the high that they are at in 2025. Fallout 2 followed in Fallout 1's footsteps, albeit having much less commercial success with closer to 123K sales. There was a couple spin-offs and DLCs here and there, some better than others. Fallout 3 was even in production, then codenamed Fallout Van Buren, which would have looked very different from the Fallout 3 we ended up getting. But then, disaster struck Interplay.
How easy it would be.
Remember how I said Obsidian was a spiritual successor to Interplay? Well, that's because Interplay failed.
2.
Though Interplay had amazing games under their belt, even besides Fallout, helping publish multiple Baldur's Gates being the most notable, they had issues. They had overborrowed and couldn't pay it back, while also making Fallout 3 their most ambitious project yet. This also wasn't helped by a new, bigger company named Titus that had bought them out. And their new de facto leader, Herve Kine, wanted desperately to move Fallout to consoles so they could sell more and appeal to a larger audience. Oh boy, was he right to think that, but it wasn't the time to do that. Interplay had started their descent to bankruptcy, an eventual closure by making a decision that changed Fallout forever, selling to Bethesda. A game studio with many great first-person RPGs under their belt had now bought one of the best RPGs out there. Bethesda knew how to make a great game. The Elder Scrolls Saga is still talked about and continuing to this day as one of the greatest fantasy sagas ever. Redfall, Oblivion, and of course, Skyrim. At the time, Skyrim hadn't been released yet. So coming off of Oblivion, which was a massive hit and even arguably outshined by Skyrim, whilst being a better RPG, debate in the comments, Bethesda was ready to bless the world with Todd Howard in a nuclear wasteland. Todd Howard, the lead at Bethesda, wanted to expand, and Fallout was the perfect avenue to make some sweet caps. Fallout 3 was an amazing success, and the only game that is the competitor to Fallout 1's impact on the franchise. It took you from a 3D isometric world to one where you are the person. The first-person view in games is one of the best when it comes to raw immersion power. You can see yourself as truly in the game, viewing the world from not the character's eyes, but your own. You aren't watching a character move where you click, but instead moving them, free to do whatever you could do in real life, and more. Fallout 3 created the Fallout that most people know while only slightly compromising on RPG elements. Some consider Fallout 3 the best Fallout of all time. But then, like a bad father asking you for money after you succeeded, Interplay resurfaces. This time going under a new name. Created from the remnants of Interplay, or more specifically, a sector of Interplay, Black Isle, Fergus Urquhart, Chris Avalon, Chris Parker, Darren Monahan, and Chris Jones lost their jobs at Black Isle due to the company shutting down in 2003. Starting Obsidian, they create some great games, normally on an extreme time crunch, such as Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. They didn't have a lot of money to start a new IP, so their plan was to take games that are already established as franchises and make sequels or spin-offs. This worked really well for them, and when they saw the release of Fallout 3, they saw it as a chance to work with Fallout again. So, when approached by Bethesda to create a spin-off of Fallout, they jumped at the chance. 18 months was given to Obsidian to create a full-fledged game. The game that they decided to create was a game called Fallout New Vegas. And everyone was wondering if and how they could pull this off. This game was a mess. Littered with bugs, glitches, and game crashes, New Vegas was a sorry state at launch. And what do you expect? With only 18 months to create a whole game, despite all of that, it was able to pull in a score on Metacritic of 84, which was one short of the score that they had in a special stipulation in their contract with Bethesda that allowed for a bonus if they got a score of 85. Obsidian didn't choose to be petty and abandon the game like most studios would today, but instead believed in their product and released updates. 4 major DLCs, and the community rallied, making mods to fix anything the devs couldn't. Under the hardened, buggy exterior, New Vegas looked back at the core of Fallout, creating the best RPG that Fallout has ever seen. Fallout New Vegas is the game that I point to when someone wants to try out RPGs. It is simple to understand, but also extremely deep for experienced or curious players. It's also one of my personal favorite games of all time, and that is mirrored by the core community of Fallout lovers. After the terrible release of Fallout New Vegas, 8 years passed and it became the greatest game of all time. But we had heard nothing from Fallout until... It's 2016. A whole new generation of consoles has passed since the last Fallout, and people are wanting more. What will this amazing RPG franchise do with new graphics, and how deeply can they push RPGs, even affecting the world around you differently? Fallout 4 was the first Fallout I played. I had watched my older brothers play the other ones when my parents weren't watching me, and marveled about how cool they were. But now, I didn't have a parent that told me I couldn't buy the new Fallout 4. I put the disc in my Xbox and loved everything about it. From the cool companions to the new remodeled power armor that made you feel like the Hulk. It was amazing. Still littered with bugs and glitches at launch, but it got me so interested, I started looking back at the old ones that I used to watch. And when I looked back, I was disappointed. As I played more and more of these old games, I realized that something was missing. I was missing a sense of impact. I played through Fallout 4 again, and it didn't feel the same. I felt that the very thing that made me love Fallout 4 originally started making me sad because I couldn't have more. The original Fallouts had full sentence dialogue and no voice actor. That allowed me to know what I was saying and picture myself saying it, while the new one had a wheel of options with vague words that could mean anything. In the old, when I finally got that power armor, it was a great accomplishment that was towards the end of the game. In the new, I got it 30 minutes into playing. In the old, I could end the game however I wanted, even if it meant blowing up or letting the world die. In the new, I could help a settlement 20 times, then to just find out that they really don't care what I think. This isn't a dunk on Fallout 4 because it's still one of my favorite games, and with a couple small mods, you can make it nearly as good as the original games. But it was a jump. and an indicator of what Bethesda was about to do next.
Almost heaven.
A fate worse than atomic annihilation is watching your favorite game become live service. I'd come off the high that was the Fallout universe and wanted more. I wanted to relive the moments of that Fallout universe in a new story. I pre-ordered this new Fallout that I could even play with friends. I start the download the day the game comes out, and then go to school, thinking throughout the entire day that I was going to get an amazing experience that was going to blow me away. When I got home, I was greeted by microtransactions, grind, and 0 NPCs, apart from the occasional robot here or there. Though you can now choose the dialogue outside of just a couple words, and there was no voice actors, the RPG element was entirely lost in an online game, especially since you weren't talking to humans. Over time, updates have been added, and they added human NPCs, but the original game wasn't based on including humans. It was created so your impact on the world was not seen so others could experience it unaltered. An example is the most recent update, where you can become a ghoul, which is basically an irradiated zombie. And the only thing that changes is text walls. No one reacts any differently. No one cares you changed. Fallout 76 is also a great game, much like Fallout 4. And after many updates and changes, it has a great community. I have even played it a couple times through, but it isn't a traditional Fallout. And if there were a new Fallout that was created in the traditional RPG format, I wouldn't even have given it a second thought.
You mean use my cock?
Yeah.
TV show adaptation for video games seemed to be a controversial topic, but with Fallout TV, it wasn't the case. Jonathan Nolan of the Nolan brothers approached Bethesda with a passion-filled idea for a TV show, which is different from the norm of game companies approaching directors that have no clue about the game they are creating an adaptation for. Fallout TV was a love letter to the Fallout franchise, a comedy drama that capitalizes on the dark humor and comical aspects of the Fallout universe. This show even expanded upon existing game lore and will most likely expand even further in the next season. Taking a game that has an extremely dark premise, like nuclear warfare, can be both funny and interesting at the same time. This is similar to what the Marvel Universe tries and fails to do with most of their recent movies. Creating a good story while being funny is hard. But because those who worked on the show loved the game, it made it great. The success of this show pushed the games to new heights, reaching numbers very uncommon for the age of these games. This once again shows how Bethesda was using other studios or people to create greatness for their franchise, instead of doing it themselves. Bethesda can and does create good games, and will probably make more Fallouts, hopefully within the next 10 years. But they will only be successful if they look back at their history and take what made their games good back. Stop relying on nostalgia and feeding off of old projects made by other companies to fuel your live serviced moneymaker, and create your own thing. It's been almost 10 years now since a mainline game was created, and this hype will not last forever. So stop squeezing the life out of other people who love your franchise and make another Fallout 3. Like, sub, follow Twitch, love Jesus, bye.